So welcome back to another episode of the Cast in Order of Appearance, where today we've got a double whammy. We're going to do both the Starweaver and the Voidweaver, because, you know, they've got a fairly similar profile and they just fulfill a slightly different role. So I'm going to go through both of those today. This is my Starweaver. I don't actually have the weapons platform for a Voidweaver built, so we're just going to have to look at this one. But yeah, let's get started with the lore. So Starweavers and Voidweavers are named after the first and second sons of the Cosmic Serpent, respectively. So let's go through a little bit of why they're named after them. So we've got the Starweaver was named for the first and greatest son of the Cosmic Serpent. Starweaver was the most noble and courageous of his serpentine kin, and swiftly made common cause with the Laughing God, whose courage and wildness he greatly admired. The serpent freely gave his aid to Kagorak, and in tales such as the humbling of Eldernesh or the flight from the grave of stars, even suffered the Harlequin deity to ride through danger upon his back. So do the Harlequins mount their Starweaver transports with reverence, for their actions echo those of Kagorak himself. And then when we're looking at the Voidweavers, the vehicle is named after the second of the Cosmic Serpent's brood. The legends tell that ever in its elder brother's shadow, the Voidweaver became an ill-tempered, brooding creature. It would fight at the slightest provocation, and revelled in proving its superiority over others. Meanwhile, its caution was such that it sprouted a second head, looking always behind so that the Voidweaver would never be surprised by its foes. In the mythic stories, this serpent never allowed Kagorak to ride upon its back, but after the Laughing God bested it in a trial of cunning, the Voidweaver lent its strength to Kagorak's own, acting as his sentry and accomplice on numerous occasions. Okay, so named after two different sons, slightly different stories. The first one is all noble and nice and is the nicest of the two. Second one, kind of a jealous prat, but, is just how it is, and both of them are kind of like two different brothers with two different roles. So let's have a look at how that transfers to the gameplay. So when we look at the stats of both Starweavers and Voidweavers, they have almost exactly the same statistics. So they both have a movement of 16 inches, both have a weapon skill of 3+, both have a ballistic skill of 3+, strength 5, toughness 5, 6 wounds, 3 attacks, leadership 8, and a 4+ save. Which is, it's pretty good. 6 wounds. It's kind of like a little bit, slightly beefier Venom for all of you Drukhari fans. They're both single models, and they're both armed with 2 shuriken cannons, but the Voidweaver is armed with a haywire cannon. Now, the Voidweaver may replace its haywire cannon with a prismatic cannon, but the Starweaver is a transport and can transport 6 mask infantry models. So that's either a troop of 6 or 5 with a character model, which is one thing that I think pretty much most Drukhari players wish they could have. Being able to transport a small unit, minimum unit, and a character is really useful. So with the Voidweaver, it has blur of color, as does the Starweaver, which means that they add 6 inches to the move characteristic, a little bit like the jet bikes, or exactly like the jet bikes. They both have hollow fields, they still have a 4-up invuln save, and they have mirage launchers as well, so you have to subtract 1 from any hit rolls. And they both explode, and they cause 1 mortal wound within 6 inches. Pretty good for a little transport. So we've got 6 wounds and toughness 5, and a 4-up armor save naturally, and then a 4-up invuln save on top of that, and you have the -1 to hit. So it's actually quite difficult to kill these things. The difference here is that the Starweaver is a transport and the Voidweaver has an extra weapon. So that is the main difference in terms of their stat line. However, the Voidweaver does have the ability to take this prismatic cannon, which has a very unique profile. So you can replace a haywire cannon with a prismatic cannon, and you have 3 different profiles for its shooting. So the first one is dispersed. It's 24 inches, assault D6, strength 4, -2 AP, and 1 damage. The next one is Focused, which is 24 inches, Assault D3, Strength 6, -3 AP and D3 damage. And the Lance is 24 inches, Assault 1, Strength 8, -4 AP and D6 damage. So you have 3 different profiles. That's a lot of versatility for one weapon, which can be quite nice. It's also worth noting that in the last chapter approved, both the Starweaver and the Voidweaver dropped in points massively. And the Prismatic Cannon became exactly the same points cost as a Haywire Cannon, which is pretty nice. So now you're looking at 90 points for a Voidweaver and 80 points for a Starweaver, with everything included, which is not bad, really. I mean, it's not that cheap. It's not Venom cheap. But for us, for Harlequins, it's nice, and we needed them to go down because we need those transports often to protect our troops. So let's go into why we use them, or what the reason is for including these guys in your army. So let's start off by saying that you will need Starweavers. It is pretty much a basic fact that you will need a good number of these transports to transport your troops. Now, if you're playing Soaring Spite, you probably want every single troop that you have in these, because that's how their mask trait works. They don't get a trait unless they're in a transport. With the other masks, there are some interesting ideas that you might, make use of, particularly surrounding the idea of the base size, and, a couple of the other characteristics that they have as well. So, given that they have quite a large base, it means that they can tag quite a lot in combat, which means that if you use Silent Shroud with the Deny Overwatch stratagem, the Silken Knife, you can actually tag, multiple units in combat with that. You just have to be a little bit careful, because if you are transporting a troop in there and you get wrapped and they destroy your transport, then everything inside is going to die. So that's something to be a little careful of. You could also just keep loading everything up with something like Dreaming Shadow, and then of course you've got the ability to shoot with one of its shuriken cannons when it dies, which is quite useful. You can also make one into a relic transport with the Soaring Spite, which gives it another 6-inch movement. I mean, they already move very, very fast. You've got 16 inches, 22 inches if they advance. They have assault weapons, so, they can still shoot even if you're not Soaring Spite, and with Soaring Spite they shoot at full ballistic skill. They're a really, really useful unit to have. So if you're going to use Starweavers, why do you use them? Well, to protect your troops is the obvious one, because they're toughness 5 and your troops are toughness 3, which makes it a little more difficult to kill a transport than it does to kill a troop. You might want to have your troops in big numbers and protect them with a Shadow Seer. That works very well too. But you're probably going to mix and match. You might decide that you want everything foot slogging, in which case Starweavers aren't for you. You might decide that you want everything in Starweavers, in which case, that's what this video is for. But I like to have a bit of a mix, bit of both, because 80 points is quite a lot. So I have 4 in my current list, and I think that's enough. Actually, personally. I did think about spamming them, but I think it's enough. Now, why would you choose a Voidweaver? Tough, basically. I like Voidweavers, but the difficulty with them is that they are 10 points more for no transport capacity and 1 gun that still has random shots, which is a little difficult. If you're running a brigade, then obviously you need Voidweavers, because they are our only option for heavy support. Or if you want to run a spearhead, same goes. Which, they can be quite useful. For me, I think they have exactly the same purpose as a Starweaver, in that they are quite useful for taking an objective and moving around the board for board control. And, you can use them for screening, you can use them to deny Overwatch, as I say, you can use them basically just to zip around, be annoying, and survive, because they do survive quite a lot of punishment. It is very rare that I've gotten to like turn 3 or 4 without at least having one of these guys still remaining. So They can take quite a lot of punishment. They're basically one of the most durable things that we have in the army. And they're very useful for like grabbing objectives and just being annoying. They're like little bees that just pee everyone off, but you can't expect them to do a huge amount. I tend to find without rerolls, I'm getting maybe a wound on a unit, maybe two if I'm lucky, but they're not going to really do that much damage. And with a Voidweaver, you're very likely to roll that one exactly when you need it on a D6 weapon. It's just unfortunately the way it is. So what would make a Voidweaver competitive? I think if we got a trait in the Psychic Awakening book, which I don't think is completely unlikely, where a single model in a unit could re-roll the number of shots that they get, that could work. That could make Voidweavers actually viable. Particularly if you could mix it with a trait that allows you to re-roll ones to hit. I mean, I'm wish listing, but I think that would make the Voidweaver viable. As it stands, I think they can be useful, but they're probably not going to be your first choice. If you're taking multiple Voidweavers, it gets expensive. They can't transport your troops, and their fire output is not particularly high. That being said, I know that some people absolutely love them. I know if you're going to make a brigade, for example, that you need them. I know people who just like to have the extra haywire shots. So you max out all of your bikes, and then you max out all of your Voidweavers, and you've got 21 haywire shots, 21 D6 haywire shots, which is a very good amount. You're probably going to get through most tanks that way. But yeah. As a whole, I would say Starweavers are an absolute must. As far as I'm concerned, Voidweavers, you can take them or leave them. But that's just my opinion. As I've always stated, I'm not here to tell you guys how to play. I'm just here to tell you my experiences, what I learn as I go on, and how I've found playing the Harlequins and what I enjoy about them, what I find difficult about them. So from my experience, I love having them. I love having the Starweavers, and my current list is using the Deny Overwatch a lot, which means that I'm not using my Solitaire for that anymore. I've actually taken the Solitaire out, and I've just put more transports and things in there, which gives me that nice little niche just to be able to zip around the board, take those objectives. If you're playing ITC, take recon, behind enemy lines, any of these kind of things. They are fantastic for that board control, taking objectives, and just being an annoying target that takes quite a lot to kill. Okay, so that was the Starweaver and the Voidweaver. Next time will be the very last time, and it will be all about the Webway gate. I don't actually own one, so I'll think of something. But essentially that will be the very last in this series. And then we are going to start moving on to the different masks and what you might want to include in those mask forms. Thank you very much. This has been Goes to the Webway. I've been Kit. Thank you very much for watching. As usual, like, subscribe, help me to make this the base for Harlequins players worldwide. Thanks a lot. See you later.